This might be one of the best gear purchases I've made. You can look at this and it just looks like a brick, and maybe what I'm saying sounds a bit much. Maybe it is. But in terms of what you encounter when you're doing different kinds of filming, really anything that is at length, right? So if you're filming, whether it's some sort of event, whether it's you're doing some sort of interview, whether it's a show, whether it's a whatever, if you're doing anything that has a longer runtime than like 30 to 45 minutes, you should consider getting one of these. Or maybe a slightly smaller version. You don't necessarily have to go for something like this, but this is something that's worth considering, and the price actually isn't too bad. So what is this? This is a V-mount battery. So this brick right here is basically just a giant chunky battery. How does it work? Well, there's a couple different ways that it can work in terms of supplying power. So on top of this specific one is by ZG Cine. It's a 99 watt. I believe that's how V-mounts are measured, is like they're measured in watts. So you can buy like a 50 watt, you could buy a 99 watt. So you could get a 99 watt. You could get even above that. There's some that are like there's a Caleb Pike and Small Rig collaboration battery that I think is like, it's over 200 watts, I think. I think it might be a 240 watt. I could be wrong. So the higher the watts, the bigger the battery gets usually. But this one, so one thing that's worth noting is if you travel on planes, as far as I've heard, credit to whoever wrote this, wherever I read this, however long ago, apparently you can't take a battery that is larger than 100, or no, you can't take, it's either you can't take a battery on a plane that's over 100 watts or that's 100 watts and above. And so then that is why apparently they made the 99 watt V-mount, because it's like just within that allotted limit of battery capacity. Now I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure I probably read that somewhere. Anyway, what are the ways that it could work? So on this specific brand of battery, depending on the V-mount that you get, it might not have all the same ports, but on this one, it's got and also has little rubber flaps to cover it, which might be nice. I'm not going to make any guarantees about in rainy weather conditions, but so far so good in my experiences. But it's probably better to have the rubber flaps than to not have them if you're outside in various weather. But anyway, you got a USB-C out, a USB-A, so that's the square one, out. You have a D-tap. Now what's a D-tap? This is commonly going to be used for like powering a camera via a dummy battery. What's a dummy battery? I'll show you in a second. And then on the side here you have another USB-C. But as far as I understand, this USB-C is just used for charging the battery. So why might that matter? As far as I understand, if you don't have a USB-C or some form of other input on the side to charge the battery, then you'd have to charge it via this here. This is like, I don't know if you can see this here, but this orange bit on the bottom here, I'm trying to get it in the light there. Lighting, I don't have the lighting geared in super good for stuff like this, but there's a little thing on the bottom there. It's got 5 little kind of hole ports there where this orange strip is, and that would like dock on something. So it's a V-mount as far as I understand, because it's got this V-lock mechanism on the back of the battery here. Right there. Okay, and you would normally, if you didn't have an input like this to charge on the side, I believe that you would buy like a V-mount charging dock. Pretty sure. And you would just like mount it in there and it would charge it up. But that is probably more expensive than just buying a USB-C cable and a little charging block for that, right? So, or however you would go about doing that. So it kind of gives you some options there, but it might be a little bit slower. Maybe it depends on the type of charging cord or charging block, and again that might vary depending. There's another truck that's wanting to come into this spot here. It's popular around town right now. It's a nice evening, so it's tough to kind of get a spot where nobody else is at, especially when you're doing something like this, right? Because you don't really want to vlog in front of other people or whatever you call this. But anyway, so I can't guarantee how hefty of a charger you could use with the V-mount if it does have a USB-C charging option on it, because like some might not be able to take like a 100-watt USB-C charger and make full use of it. Maybe they can only use like something equivalent to what like a cell phone would use. Like I don't know. Like, but if you get one of those like smart chargers, again, do your own research when it comes to that. Do not hold me responsible for any potential damage you may or may not do to your battery from trying whatever kind of cable or charger block. But anyway, moving on. What's nice about this one, and probably most V-mount batteries, I think this is technically considered a mini V-mount battery, I guess just because I assume older V-mounts were larger. Whether they had more capacity or not, I cannot confirm, but this I think is commonly referred to as a mini V-mount, which might sound surprising because it looks kind of hefty. It's got a little battery percentage reading here on the LCD screen, which is helpful because if you are out and about and you're doing stuff and you want to know how much battery you got left without just kind of guessing, or it's more of an accurate reading than if you just have like 4 dots on the side, right? And so you might not want to have that on all the time because that might technically drain the battery a little bit faster, but if you want to know where it's at, and then there's just that little button on the side, which as far as I understand is just to turn that LCD screen on and off, because I think it could still supply power even when the LCD screen's off. So anyway, how does this actually work? So you would put it into either onto a camera that has a V-mount dock on it, or you would get like a dummy mount or whatever, which is basically just no electronics. It's just like the little, like a plate that has a V-lock on it, so you can mount the battery in there, and then you could plug stuff into the battery. But if you don't want to go that route, like for my camera, I went a bit more of a modular route, where if I wanted to like swap out the batteries, which I only have one of these, so I can't even do this yet, but maybe in the future, if I wanted to swap out the batteries, so I didn't, or if I wanted to be able to swap out the batteries quickly, or the battery quickly, without having to unplug and replug things, what I did is I bought, this is probably called a power plate, I could be wrong, but essentially it's got ports on it and like an on and off button, and it's got a little V-lock kind of disengage or eject, whatever you'd call that switch. And so essentially what you do is it's got the kind of power port thing or whatever on the bottom for this here, so you just put it on there, it holds on to there, and now when you turn the plate on, right, then it provides power to all of these ports here. And this also has ports that my battery doesn't have. It has like the different DC ports, so it's got an 8-volt DC port and 2 12 volts. It's got a USB-A on there and a D-tap as well. And then if you want to take off the battery, just press that button, take the battery off, put it back on, then I could keep the stuff plugged in that is plugged into the plate here. And so what I would do for if I'm running this on my camera I'm using right now is I would plug the dummy battery into the power plate here, and then this, actually I have a cheese plate on the back of this power plate, and then on that cheese plate I have a little kind of dummy V-lock, and then that goes onto my small rig kind of tilting V-lock plate, dummy plate, that then the camera is kind of, you know, Arca Swiss plate mounted to or whatever. It's a pretty modular setup, a lot of different little pieces and stuff on there, but the pieces come together and it works. And so then what is a dummy battery? I said that I would tell you what that is. Essentially, it's just a kind of this little plasticky battery piece that would go into your camera, and then there's a cord running out from that little kind of hollow plasticky battery, and that cord is going to wherever your power source is, whether it's like a wall outlet, whether it's a D-tap, or maybe you have one that goes to like a type of, you know, 12-volt DC port or whatever it is. And so then that just goes in your camera, so that goes on the back of the whole camera rig, then this goes into the camera, and then now it's being powered off this, and it kind of just makes life a bit easier. This is normally what I do for most of the stuff that I'm doing. When I was traveling in France, there was a lot of times where I just used the internal batteries. and just kind of would swap them as I went. But there was one point in time where I think both the batteries were kind of low, and I wanted to just be able to, I think, just film without having to be concerned about the camera dying while I was filming or something like that. And so that's basically like, V-mounts just make your camera life easier on average, because you're just getting a bigger battery that will give you power for longer, and you could power multiple things off of one battery, usually, depending on what your battery is, how many ports it's got or how it's set up or whatever. And so you could run a bunch of stuff off the one battery instead of having all these other batteries that you all have to make sure that they're charged or change when they run out, because like they're smaller, so in a longer shoot they're probably more likely to run out of power and stuff like that. And so it kind of just maybe consolidates things down to one central power source that is a fairly hefty one that maybe you only need to change once a day if you have like another battery, like another V-mount battery. And so then instead of changing batteries like, let's say 4 or 5 times depending on like how big the battery is, imagine just changing the battery once or twice a day, and that's the battery that supplies the whole rig, as opposed to different battery for the monitor, different battery for the camera, blah blah blah. So just kind of makes things easier. And you might think, okay, well, how expensive is it? So this one here, I'm not going to do a price check right now, I'm just going to go based off of what I think I remember seeing. If you were to get this one here, and I think I bought it because it was the cheapest, and it still looked appealing, I assume, or if I'm remembering correctly, because it had the screen on there. I'm not sure if the fact that it had the ports on here mattered to me at the time. It probably was a plus, because there's another one that I think only has like a D-tap on it, and that wasn't as appealing as the one that's going to have more ports, because more ports, more options or abilities to plug more things, right? So it's just, this one was one, at least at the time that I bought it, I think was one of the cheaper ones, and it still seemed good. It kind of has a cool look to it, and it's been pretty solid. It only cost, I think, around, and this might sound expensive, but in the world of camera gear, this is probably a lower end cost. It was about around 150 Canadian, somewhere around there, which for a V-mount battery, when you're in the V-mount battery range, 99 watt range, $150 is probably on your kind of more lower end of pricing, because some stuff is probably more around like the $200+ range. I could be wrong, maybe things have changed. This might have even been $180, I could be wrong. It could have been only like maybe $20, $30 cheaper than the next model up, but when you're kind of working with more of a tight budget, that $20, $30 for roughly the same kind of thing might be tempting to just go for the slightly cheaper one, as long as it's hopefully good enough. But anyway, so would I recommend one of these? Again, if you're doing anything that is over 30 to 45 minutes, I recommend this over probably most other gear that you would get. So if you got your camera, you got your lens, like your main lens, you got some audio, like, like a shotgun mic or whatever, you got those essentials, the camera, lens, audio, tripod or whatever. Then after that point, if you have even just some really basic level of rigging just to be able to put the battery on it, I recommend getting one of these. And you don't have to go expensive with the rigging to put this battery on there. You could literally just get like a base plate for your camera that has the insert for the two 15mm rods, then put some sort of just cheap dummy V-mount plate on the rods, and then like just have your camera on that rod system base plate thing just more or less the whole time. If you want to get more modular with it, put an Arca Swiss plate on your camera, or a cage on your camera, then an Arca Swiss plate, and then put an Arca Swiss plate base onto that base plate that has the 15mm rods, just if you want to be able to make your camera bigger and smaller without tools and just really quickly and conveniently. But whenever you hear more parts, just think more cost. That might not always be the case, but I mean, even if it's a few dollars, it's probably always going to be the case that just the more pieces that are on a camera rig, the more price is involved. But regardless, I'll leave that there, I guess. One of the better pieces of gear that I've gotten in terms of its just usefulness. I've used it a lot. Even if you just have like, if you don't even want to rig it out, if you don't want to rig out your camera, just get like a dummy battery cable that doesn't have, like I got one that had a cord like this, like one of those coiled cords, so it kind of had some stretchy variability, but it would kind of, you know, get like less, what's the best way to say this, where the cord wouldn't be like a bunch to deal with because it just kind of auto compacts or whatever. So this works really well for when you have it on like just like a rig where the battery's close to the camera, because then even if you take the battery and you move it further back on a shoulder rig, it kind of auto adjusts, right? But if you just want to have the camera with the dummy battery going to the V-mount and you don't want to have the V-mount on the camera, you could literally just get a dummy battery with a cord that isn't coiled, it's just a longer cord, and just plug in the dummy battery to the V-mount. Try to make sure it's like on there good, that this doesn't fidget around and unplug or anything like that. Maybe even just put like a little bit of tape on it if you want to be kind of that way about it. But just like plug that into the camera and then just put like the V-mount in like a bag or something like that and just run the cord to it, and then you could just hold your camera in your hands. Like, you don't have to do it that way, but if you got like a really tight budget and you just need more battery, you just need the camera to be able to work, and you want to minimize like the anxiety for like the camera shutting off or running out of battery, having to swap batteries all the time if you're on the run or on the move a lot, and you just need it to just work and work for a while and not worry about it, then if you don't have a lot of money, like just get a dummy battery cord that's long and just put the battery somewhere on you that's like safe and reasonable and everything like that, and just run the cord into your camera. That's like the super cheap way to do it if you don't want to rig out your camera. So I'll kind of end that there. Don't sleep on this whole dummy battery thing if you're having not a great time with batteries in your camera life right now, or whatever you want to call it. Like if you're just tired of always changing batteries or of running out of battery, or if you're trying to film like an event and you're worried if your camera's going to like shut off on you because of the recording setting that you picked and the event is running long. What the bug landed on me there. And if the event's running longer than like 30 minutes or whatever, and you just want to be like, you know what I mean? Consider a V-mount battery. One of the better gear purchases that I've made. I'll leave that there. Thank you guys for watching.